And that's actually where the problem with the Coupang as a stock really lies, because it's priced in as a growth stock. And we are wondering where that growth will come from. The new growth areas that we are talking about in terms of fintech, food delivery, media, at the end of the day, in terms of the overall revenue, it's only 3 to 4%. Doesn't really move the needle at all. And there are a lot more competition in that field. So you have the headwinds coming from the slowdown in the macro, both in the long term and short term as well, for the e-commerce. And then you need more competition in this new business. So meaning that you need more time. So that's where the real question really comes from for the stock.
And I found it really interesting that they mentioned international, because I don't see very aggressive push into overseas markets, perhaps Taiwan. But how is that working out for Coupang? And is it too saturated or too competitive for Coupang to see meaningful growth in overseas markets at this point?
Right. Timing is not really favorable. It's not on their side to really push through this global expansion angle. And we all know that all the internet names around the world is scaling back in terms of aggressive approach. And that applies to Coupang as well. And that's one of the reasons why their earnings were solid last year, because they are focusing their energy in the markets where they are actually pretty good and have a good chance to continue to gain market share. That is unlikely to change in a short period of time, in our view. Yes, it will be a long-term growth potential for them, but right now we don't really think it's a good time, at least in the next 12 months point of view.
Seungjoo, Will here in Singapore. I've got to ask you what you mentioned about the valuation of Coupang being a little bit too elevated, but isn't it fair to say that if you take the fact that they're listed in the United States, a lot of investors there like the idea of the Korean exposure? They're a market leader that perhaps you're paying a little bit of a premium because they are profitable. There is a pathway, perhaps not necessarily transparently available there for growth. So that is to be expected?
Yeah, it could be, Will. But also, you could also argue that there are other companies, more pure play on the ground, that is as profitable as Coupang, and also gaining market share as well. So it really comes to the opportunity cost and what are the other options if you start looking more detail into the Korean market and other emerging markets. Then you kind of start to look at the valuations of the stocks that you can own in that space. And that's where our argument about whether Coupang is rightfully valued for this type of growth profile is the questions that we have on the stock.